Well, Crowdfunder exists to tackle society's challenges by making ideas happen. And one of those challenges, and it's a big one, is gender equality. So in the next half hour, we're going to share with you our journey at Crowdfunder and also hopefully inspire you by talking to some truly inspirational women and hear about what they achieved. And the message is, if they can do it, maybe you can too. Before I go on, I'm delighted to introduce to you Zoe, one of our crowdfunding coaches. If Zoe could give us a little wave there. Our project owners, Aimee from Trejayne and also Tara from the Scottish Suffragettes. And finally, Crowdfunder's Issy, who will share some exciting news about money you can get your hands on to help you turn your ideas into reality. So stay tuned, grab a cup of coffee and a hobnob and listen in. Do introduce yourself in the chat, because it'd be great if you could sort of kind of give us some feedback about what your thoughts and what we're talking about. And we'll Q&A at the end, so you can all join in and ask any other questions if you have some. So, Nicole, please, could you bring up the slides? Okay, so we're going to, as I mentioned, we're going to talk to you about our journey at Crowdfunder, especially with a focus on female entrepreneurs. So female-led ideas and businesses and kind of what's happened to them to kind of fill you in and make you start thinking about the possibilities for you. So Zoe, do you want to go to the next slide, please? So a few months ago, we put together a white paper to illustrate the relationship between crowdfunding and women. And what we did was we did some research with our female-led project owners and talked to them about their experiences and what happened to them and what the impact was of them doing a crowdfund. If we can have the next slide. We were kind of inspired by this. So this is Melinda Gates, married to Bill Gates, and she led a conference in New York at the end of last year called Goalkeepers. And it was all about the future of progress. And she was very, very focused on women's power, not just empowerment. And she said this, which I'm going to read out, which kind of really framed where we think things are heading. So true equality depends not only on a woman's ability to access a livelihood, but also on her ability to control it fully. It means not just putting food on a kitchen table, but also being able to make decisions for her family around that table. It means not just benefiting from a government policy, but designing those policies. It means not just empowerment, but real lived power. And we thought that was really interesting and quite exciting, because we felt that Crowdfunder has been playing a role in that journey to real lived power for the last, noticeably for the last few years. And we wanted to sort of do some more research and engage in this more fully, and then share with you and others about the potential and the possibility for crowdfunding. Do you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. So in 2019, Crowdfunder was honoured to take part in what was called the Rose Review of Female Entrepreneurship. And Alison Rose is the first chief executive of a UK bank, and she's the CEO of NatWest Royal Bank of Scotland. And she did a Treasury report into female entrepreneurship, which we read, we engaged with, and then we started planning some activity around with a program called Back Her Business. But interestingly, the Rose Review estimated that if women chose to start and scale up their business at the same rate as men, this would have a 250 billion impact on the UK economy. So you can see that if every woman was as kind of engaged, motivated and can do as men often are, this could have a massively positive impact on the UK economy, bigger than Brexit potentially. But in the UK in 2019, only 6% of businesses in the UK were actually led by women, so a really small percentage. And the Rose Review research found that just 8% of women said they plan to start a business in 5 years versus 14% of men, with women being half as likely as men to launch the idea. So you can sort of see that men are light years ahead in terms of their thinking and their confidence in terms of starting a business. The other thing that we noted were the barriers, the things that stopped women from thinking of starting a business. So the big one really was access to finance. So many women said that they just didn't have the money, they didn't know how to get the money, they were nervous of getting the money to start their own business. They also talked about a lack of confidence and also skills. So they kind of felt that, you know, they couldn't do it, that, you know, imposter syndrome was mentioned, and lack of ability to start a business, just a feeling of, you know, not knowing where to start. And then finally, and I found this one quite interesting, they talked about a lack of a support network and mentors. So they didn't have women who were relatable to them, who they could ask about how to start a business up. They didn't have people they could turn to help them in all the sorts of different ways you need to start a business. So these really were the key barriers to women starting business as found by the Rose Review. Do you want to go on, Zoe? So the opportunity for us, we did some sort of deep thinking, and as I've mentioned, Crowdfunder really does exist to help projects tackle society's challenges, and one of those was quite clearly and is quite clearly gender equality. But every year we see thousands of women, literally thousands of women, crowdfund their ideas on Crowdfunder and start that economic journey, not just to having empowerment, feeling empowered, but actually a sort of journey towards real lived power. And for many women, what we're seeing is that it's become a more attractive way to start a new business or social enterprise than going to a bank. So the days when you put on your smart suit and your court shoes and head toddled off to the bank, those days are pretty much over. Nowadays, we're seeing that more and more women in particular are coming to Crowdfunder and crowdfunding as a way to get their idea off the ground. But we work really closely with these women to help them crowdfund successfully. And we know it's something that women find they're actually pretty good at. And they tell us afterwards that it gives them confidence. Often it gives them a sustainable income. And ultimately, that sustainable income means choices around their own independence and freedom to make their own decisions. So we felt that we're really onto something here with Crowdfunder, especially with regards to women. Next slide. So we looked more deeply into women's experiences of crowdfunding, and what we found was that over 60% of female business owners told us that they had greater confidence, skills and support from others after crowdfunding, and that around 40% of female project owners felt they had greater access to resources, networks and finance after crowdfunding. So we could see that actually these barriers started to dissolve when women took the step of crowdfunding their idea. Next slide. Another thing we noted in the data was that in 2022, of the around 55,000 projects that were added to Crowdfunder, close to half were actually female-led, which, when you consider that the Rose Review said that only 6% of businesses in Britain are led by women, you can see that there's a disproportionate skew towards female-led startups happening within Crowdfunder. And this sort of suggested to us that women are finding crowdfunding a more accessible way to try out new ideas, test them, and perhaps start a business versus the traditional routes that I mentioned, e.g. things like bank loans and so forth. Next slide. So I'm going to bring Zoe in here. Zoe, do you want to lose the slide? So Zoe is our crowdfunding expert. She is a coach, and every day Zoe talks to women and helps them turn their ideas into reality by crowdfunding. So Zoe, what's your experience of working with female-led projects, and why do you think it's so sort of successful for women?
Thanks, Dawn. Well, I think you really hit on the nail there, haven't you, with that amazing research that Crowdfunder has done in regards to that 43% of female-led crowdfunders is a huge number compared to that 6% kind of overall. And I think it's really to do with the support that they receive from our platform and from the people here at Crowdfunder to actually enable these female entrepreneurs that are crowdfunding to break down some of those hurdles and those barriers that you mentioned. So it's a really low risk way of actually testing the water with an idea. You don't have to have those finances up front. And you mentioned there, you know, the older ways that we might access that finance. So going and speaking to the banks, which can be quite intimidating. And there's a lot of hoops that you may need to jump through in order to access traditional forms of finance. And you may also need to have projections, a really solid business plan, for example. You need to be quite far on in your kind of business journey, if you like, as an entrepreneur, sometimes to access that finance. Whereas with crowdfunding, you can have a great idea and you could be trying to raise the money to be able to put those first steps in motion with that idea. So it's a brilliant way to test the water and then build confidence in that idea and create those networks. We offer, as part of our platform, some really wonderful education packages such as webinars and our knowledge hub and our learn guides that everybody can access for free. And we also run things like Q&A sessions each week where we bring project owners together and they can ask us questions about crowdfunding, or they might be stuck on their particular journey, but they can hear from one another as well. And there's a really lovely peer-to-peer support that we encourage for project owners to get involved in. And I think feeling as if you're part of a bigger network and a bigger group of people who are all doing something similar to you can be a real confidence boost as well. We often talk about the benefits of crowdfunding, not just that financial raise that people are obviously needing in order to get their projects and their ideas off the ground. But we always refer to those other benefits being just as beneficial and can create really long-lasting impact as well, not only for the project delivery, but for the project owners. So that will be things like learning new skills. And you mentioned there, Dawn, about the confidence and the lack of skills potentially that female entrepreneurs particularly might feel. But we have those resources on offer to really teach project owners all of those important digital fundraising skills, marketing skills, self-promotion, which can be out of some people's comfort zone and things that people aren't necessarily taught through the traditional channels, especially when you're looking at those numbers, Dawn, about, you know, the comparison between men being CEOs and leading kind of businesses versus women. And I think there is a cultural dynamic there that we're still trying to break free of a little bit. And I think what we're doing here at Crowdfunder is breaking that down in a really accessible way. So actually, it's very easy for female entrepreneurs to start jumping over those kind of barriers with our support. And we are here to mentor and support. And obviously, it's our job to make sure we can see as many of those successful projects coming through the platform as possible. And we've actually been joined by two incredibly successful projects, both wonderful projects as well. We'll share the links to them so people can take a look at them. But if you wouldn't mind joining me, Aimee and Tara. So we have Aimee here from Trejayne Glass Studio, and we've also got Tara from the Scottish Suffragettes. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you both?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you, Tara? Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, really well. From myself and the Protest and Suffragettes team, we're like very excited to be included. So thank you for that.
Would you mind, let's start with you, Tara. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your project and what you wanted to achieve by coming to Crowdfunder as a platform to raise those all-important funds?
Absolutely. So we were really interested. We became aware as a team. It's a team of people who've been looking at women's activism, specifically in Glasgow, for a number of years. Our crowdfunder happened over lockdown, so a very specific time where we were meeting online. And we became aware that a lot of the history of suffrage, of women kind of fighting and campaigning for the right to vote in Scotland, a lot of the history that was taught in schools really pivots around English history and English activism. And we wanted to, and we spoke to a lot of teachers, and, you know, in our team, we've got some folks with young kids. So we kind of asked around and realized that actually, although there were resources online, there weren't very good plug and play resources for teachers. So what we wanted to do, and what we raised money for, amazingly, we raised over 200% of our target, which was amazing. We created an education pack on Scotland's suffrage history, which had in it some very bespoke teaching resources, as well as decks of Scottish Suffragette trumps cards, and those feature activists from across the region. And we've had really good feedback. We were able to create 100 packs. Like I said, it was more than twice what we expected. And we gifted those to schools in every region of Scotland. So now we're getting, you know, we've gotten feedback from teachers, and we're looking to actually create another 100 packs. So
that's amazing. And it's great to see that obviously that's going to create a legacy going forward. And then there's going to be groups of these school kids coming through learning about such a vital part of their history, which is incredible.
exactly.
Would you say that before kind of coming to Crowdfunder that you did face any hurdles, whether that be awareness, trying to raise the funds that you might have experienced as a group or as female kind of entrepreneurs before accessing the Crowdfunder platform?
Yeah, so I think very specifically in this instance, we had talked about creating a deck of suffragette trumps cards before, because it's a sweet idea, and it's one we were very excited about. And I had actually tried. We were an unconstituted group at that point, but as an independent artist, I had tried to raise funds through funders, basically to write funding grants. To do something like that, and to be completely frank, nobody would fund it because the unit price point is too high. So the actual cards are kind of expensive to produce an individual deck. But as it turns out, you know, funders may have thought that, but actual individual humans didn't. We had 277 individual donors over the month of the crowdfunder. And that was an incredible experience. And also, I think, an incredible boost just to our kind of collective understanding that, like, as silly as this might sound, the things that we're interested in, there are many other humans interested in those things, right? Many other humans. And those humans have no problem giving you 10 pounds, 20 pounds. Like, they're excited for you for this idea. And that, I think, it's one thing to hear someone say it, and it's totally another experience to just walk that. Yeah.
That's so interesting that you say that, because that could have been the end of your journey. You know, it's not going to get funded. That's it. We had a brilliant idea, but it's not going to go anywhere. So to actually have so much support, I mean, how lovely is that, to have that massive boost? And I imagine you had lots of people then going on to talk about what you're doing, you know, be interested in seeing how it's all developed, probably brilliant comments of support as well, which does just cement, you know, your idea and build that advocacy, which is something that we often talk about, don't we, Dawn, here at Crowdfunder?
And it also, can I just say one more thing? It also really, I think, so two things about the process. So we had really brilliant coaching by Nicole, and we really did collectively use the resources that you've already mentioned online. Like, they are brilliant. They are very plug and play. And they do, in fact, you know, so many points in our lives, there's no map for how to move things forward. So I'm always really grateful when somebody can just tell you, you just do it like this. This is how you do it, and it's going to work. And actually, it was I think we had a lot of confidence, not in ourselves in the process of the crowdfunder, but we had quite a lot of confidence in the advice that we were getting, if that makes sense, because you have the data, you know, and it's very clear, like, this is what crowdfunder does. You have clear data. So I think we really were grateful for all of that. Like, quite precise, manageable help. And the other thing, and then I promise I'll be quiet, because I'm also really wanting to hear from our colleague who's on my screen just a little bit below. So the other thing I wanted to say is that I think the process of the crowdfunder did require us to kind of professionalize ourselves in a way which, to be completely frank, we had avoided doing. So we were a creative project, you know, I'm an independent artist, socially engaged artist. So we were kind of doing it in a particular way. And the combination of the crowdfunder plus all of the response that we got really allowed us to realize, just I think all the data that has been, you know, that you've outlined, this idea about confidence, skills, and also a support network and mentors, and how important that is, and how women, you know, might not feel, or female-led businesses might not feel that they have the skills or the confidence to move forward. It really did require us, so we had to go on all the social media platforms. Since then, we've just become a social enterprise. You know, that's literally just in 2022. We've got a new website that's coming up. So there's all these kind of things that have developed. Really, we would say that the crowdfunder was a real pivot point for that. So
that's amazing. Thank you, Tara. And how about you, Aimee? Would you mind telling us a little bit about your project, and again, maybe some of those hurdles that you came up against as, you know, a freelancer before? I know how amazing your journey has been, because I was kind of there with you for a little bit of it throughout last year's Creative Scotland. But would you mind just outlining Trejayne Glass Studio and any of those hurdles you may have come up against?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off as basically an artist in a bedroom. Like I started just like any other crafter. I was at home. It was COVID. I was out of work. I didn't know what to do. And before moving up to Scotland, I had actually done a short internship with a glass studio. So I had learned some lamp working, and I just decided to take that plunge. You know, I think COVID was this time where people were able to reflect on, like, this is how my life is. Do I have to keep going this way? And I actually decided, nope, I'm going to invest all the money I had, which was not a lot, and I got my equipment. And I realized that this is definitely what my passion was. I wanted to do this full time. So I wanted basically to go from a hobbyist to a commercial business, and that would take a lot of funding. Equipment was expensive. So I gave it a go, and I certainly was not a professional at all by any stretch of the imagination. So that was very nerve-wracking for me. The imposter syndrome came in hard. So having someone like yourself who, you know, someone took my project, my brief, and went, there's value in this. This is good. There's something here. And having a woman tell me that was like just so affirming and gave me the confidence. And then we actually started getting backing. So yeah, it completely changed my life. So thank you, Zoe.
Oh, well, I would take full personal credit, but I'm pretty sure you did it all. We just pointed you in the right direction. So Aimee, why do you think that women in particular are good at crowdfunding? We know anecdotally that they're incredibly successful, especially comparing those numbers that Dawn was mentioning. But what, from your own experience, would you say makes women good at crowdfunding?
Well, wow, that's a question. I mean, I personally identify as a she, they, and you know, I don't think there's any disadvantage whatsoever being, you know, a woman and doing crowdfunding at all. You know, there's nothing holding you back, even though we have these ideas of, like, you know, if I didn't have all the training, I didn't have the social media marketing skills, or I didn't believe I did. But, you know, I think no matter what you identify as, it's the ability to your strengths and weaknesses, and asking for help in filling those gaps. And a lot of those people were people like my mother, who was very good at writing when I wasn't. And I had a lot of other people backing me, which lots of people wouldn't have seen. And they helped me so much.
That's really good. And it's something we definitely encourage here from our side. We always do recommend that if you've got that brilliant idea, to actually reach out to those around you and actually use people's skill sets. You know, we're encouraging you to network right from the very beginning and actually build your tribe that can help support and encourage you from your side as much as we hopefully can, obviously, from the crowdfunder side. And what about you, Tara? Would you have any takeaways on why you think women in particular might be successful crowdfunders?
I mean, I think that's such a broad, I would just echo what Aimee said. It's such a broad question. And I think it's also just really important to be inclusive in how we vision that. But I would say that I think crowdfunding, I mean, this is, you know, you guys are the experts, so I would reflect this question back to yourselves. But I would also say that I think a lot of people who are interested in projects that have a kind of a specific community they're looking to benefit, or are considered to be too niche, right, or too specific. I think those are the types of projects that that seems like they do extremely well with this format, because you have the capacity to gather together, you know, humans from around the world who are interested in the same thing that you're interested in. And I think regardless of how specific that is, I think you know, campaigns that are well designed with good visuals, that have clear messaging and real genuinely great aims, you know, you can find people who are willing to support you. And I think people are really looking for, I'm sure this was true, you know, it was definitely true during lockdown, and I don't think it's any less true now. People are looking for things that they can add their value to, like that they can, like, we want to be involved in things that are making the world better. You know, like it's like a bad bumper sticker, sorry. But, you know, but that means that, you know, these are really great formats for that. And they're using your own network in the process. I think maybe, you know, it's possible that, you know, some of the people doing crowdfunding are just really good at that. They're good at reaching out to their own network as well, and to kind of developing that network and expanding it.
Yeah, and that is so key, isn't it? Dawn, did you have something to add?
Right. I'm so interested by both of your journeys and your projects. And but what I'm really interested in is what happens next, or what happened next, because for me, it's all about the impact that your projects have. And I think, you know, Alison Rose identified there was this huge, you know, £250 billion impact if women sort of started their own businesses. But what I'm interested in you is what's happened since your crowdfund. So has volunteering happened? Have you created jobs? Is there, you know, is there something happening as a result that you perhaps didn't expect?
I can see Aimee smiling because I know your answer.
Yes. So I mean, yeah, sorry. So I went from a hobbyist, and within about a year and a half, I now have a studio I never thought I would be able to rent. The size is incredible. It has a kitchen, it has a bathroom. I was the stay-at-home mum. I now am the business owner, and I employ my partner who works for me. Like that
Nice.
shift in dynamic, I never thought I'd have that. So that was incredibly empowering. But the thing that the crowdfunding really did for me was, like, I had this dream of, like, I want to be an independent artist, and I want to recycle glass, and I want to teach people. And that was as far as I ever thought I would get. And I obtained that within a year and a half. So now I'm able to dream so much bigger than I ever thought I would be able to. So now I'm looking at, you know, 5 to 10 year plan, opening a glass academy, having this education of this dying craft. Like, glass blowing is dying, and lots of people aren't training in this industry. So being able to open affordable, achievable classes where people can come in and they can experience it, and you can share it with people. As so many glass studios are literally going out of business, and at the same time mine is actually elevating, and we're going places with it. And a lot of that comes down to social media. TikTok is really big for me. It's helped me significantly in sharing my story and what I'm doing and getting people excited about it. So yeah, it's just the dreaming bigger part was insane for me.
Wow, that is amazing. I love that. What about you, Tara? What kind of, you're a slightly different style of project that you're doing. What's kind of happened next? What's the impact been from your perspective?
So I think, as I said, we became a social enterprise in 2022. We've gotten funding for a new website, which is launching literally imminently, which has been great, because it's an amazing, you know, it's a lot more beautiful than what we could have done for ourselves. It has an integrated online shop. We started an online shop, I should have said. Our new website is already live in a skeletal form at protestandsuffragettes.com. If you would like to go and check out the the suffragette trumps cards, you can get a pack, you know, there. All of the things that are purchased on the shop fund more education packs. So we're kind of looking, literally we've given away, so we created this resource on Scottish suffrage education, so Scotland's suffrage history. We've given away 100 of those packs. That's 1,000 zines, 700 decks of cards to schools across the country, and we're getting really amazing, we've gotten really amazing feedback from teachers and students. A lot of the teachers say, we have limited time to prepare for lessons, and actually there isn't that much online that's readily available and easy to find on Scotland's history. So there's all of that. I think it's a needed resource. I mean, we've gotten that feedback. So we're kind of pursuing that. We've developed a sort of plan for, I think it might not be ambitious enough listening to Aimee's 5-year plan, I have to say. It's great. I love it. I love it. So we are interested in changing the way that Scottish suffrage is taught in Scottish schools. We're interested in getting that basically, and also within the UK, to get these women's voices and these incredibly inspiring stories out more widely. And I think, this is maybe the other thing to say, is that because we spent a long time working in a quite locally rooted way in Glasgow, in Govan, which is has an amazing activist history, very particular history within Glasgow's history. But because we were locally rooted for a very long time, I think we are really mindful and have seen ourselves the value of being able to share local histories with young people. So the inspirational value of being able to share with someone who's a young person in Stranraer in Scotland, or in Orkney or Shetland, that actually there were suffragettes who lived 5 miles down the road from you, and they worked from where they were as moms, as stay-at-home moms. They wrote letters, they did petitions, they started organizations, and they changed, they literally worked to change their world for the better. I mean, they did that, right? They campaigned for women to get the vote. A lot of these women campaigned for better housing, for better, they were interested in how to make the world better. And we've found that being able to share those histories with, well, not just the young, but the young at heart as well, is very inspiring, because it isn't just something that happens somewhere else. It's something that happened where you live too. Yeah. And you can be a change maker for the now. Like, you can be part of the next generation of change makers. That's what we want to inspire, the next gen of change makers.
Wow, you guys are an inspiration station. That's what you are. So I'm going to hand over to Izzy in just a second, because she's got some quite exciting news for anyone watching. But before I do that, we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, which is quite cool, I think. And there might be people in the audience sitting there thinking, either I've got a side hustle, but I just don't know whether, should I crowdfund? Is that the right thing? Or maybe they just got an idea in their head and they're thinking, oh, should I do something about it? What would your guys' sort of top tip be? So if you were going to give someone one bit of advice to either the past you or just somebody watching, sort of hesitating about what to do next, what would your sort of top tip be? Aimee, you're looking cool.
Can I go next? I want to think my answer out a little bit.
Well, should we go with Tara?
Yeah, so I think it's important. I know it is. I think it's important to understand that you do need time for the crowdfunder. It does take time, However, I would say that I think there's such an advantage to stepping out boldly, with your idea. And I think that the chances are solid that if you are excited about it, there will be other people who are also excited about it. So, it is a much better path to just step out, be bold, and see what happens. And I think, in general, you're stepping within Crowdfunder, you're stepping into an environment where there's a quite a lot of support and quite a lot of precise advice and feedback. So you are not in any by any stretch stepping out alone, or like you're going to be on your own. Like you always have the opportunity for help and like precise advice, not like, well, you need to do that more. You know, it's quite precise, the advice. So I think, and that I find really, it's like very practical. Like I'm a very practical person. So I like it when there's like, you know, there's like a 5-step plan, you know, bring it on. Yeah. Step out. That's my short advice. Like just have a go.
Okay. Aimee, have you nailed one? Have you nailed a tip?
Yeah, it's just difficult to refine it down to one. That's the only bit I'm struggling with. I think for me personally, it was, you know, I did terribly in school. I got really bad grades. I wasn't considered to be very smart or academically high achiever. So I think coming to, you know, having to write a brief or like reach out to people and ask people for money in particular, which like, you know, that to me was a very scary idea. Just believe in yourself. You just really do have to just take the plunge and give it a try, because if you don't, it definitely won't happen. So if you do actually put it in and you ask for the help and you identify what you're good at, what you're not, and champion yourself, because you've got a voice, use it. And I think every woman on the face of the planet will, you know, scream like, yes. And you just, got to give it a go, because I would not have considered myself to be someone who could do this. So if I can, genuinely, anybody else could, regardless of what your dream is or what you're trying to achieve. Go for it. Do it.
Go for it. Okay, top advice. Thank you, Aimee. That's really inspiring. Thank you. Right, I'm gonna hand over to another of our rising stars in Crowdfunder, Izzy, who's got some exciting news about an offer for all of you listening. So Izzy, do you want to take it away?
Thank you, Dawn. Yes, we are really excited that we have got a competition that's opened for female startups to get an extra £1,000 towards their project. So if you set up a startup with Crowdfunder before the 12th of May, then you won't pay any platform fees, but you could also be in with a chance of winning £1,000. And it's up to Crowdfunder, it's up to our discretion who we think is going to win this money. So the things that we're going to be looking for, if you have a really good page, think of your page as like a pitch. This is, you're pitching to us, you're pitching to your crowd. So make sure that you have some really good images on there. A really good video helps as well. And tell us your story, inspire us. We've heard from two amazing, inspiring women today. We want to hear your story. We want to be inspired. Because if your crowd is getting excited and wants to get behind you and support you, then we're going to want to get inspired and support you even more as well. So make sure that you get it in by the 12th of May and just shout about yourself. It's really hard to sell yourself, but just give it a go. You've heard some great tips today, so just give it a go. Shout as loud as you can about what it is that you want to do, and we'll be listening.
Brilliant. Thank you, Izzy. And actually, it's probably also worth just saying, actually, that we actually have £11 million worth of match funding on Crowdfunder live that you could be eligible for. So there's £1,000 from our new Crowdfunder startup campaign, but also depending on where you live and what kind of project you're doing, you could be eligible for some big dosh. So I think one of our biggest funders will match fund up to 50 grand. So, you know, definitely worth having a bit of a look around, putting your project on the platform and seeing what you could be eligible for. So we'd love to hear from you. And obviously we'll be looking out for all of you. And as you add your project, we'll be straight on you and we'll be trying to give you the best support and advice we possibly can. So thank you very much. Especially thank you to Aimee and Tara. That's amazing. So we'd like to hand over just finally to you, the audience. And if you have any questions, it'd be great to be able to answer them.
I'll go for a frequently asked question, which might be one to kick us off with. So how long should a crowdfunding campaign be? Tara, you mentioned about time and the element of making sure you've got enough time to actually run the crowdfunding campaign. Crowdfunding is really a brilliant, short, sharp injection of kind of fundraising. We always encourage people to think about running their live campaign for around 4 to 6 weeks is optimum. And then we do say try and put as much time into the planning as well. So really you're thinking about a couple of months out of your life to kind of develop your crowdfunder page, plan who you're going to contact, and really build your audience and your crowd, and then actually run the campaign as well. We do find that if you're running a very long campaign, unless you've got something in mind in order to capture your crowd, so whether that's events or whether that's, spikes in your kind of promotion that you've got planned, it's probably not a good idea to run a really lengthy campaign, because you might find people tune out from the message for a little bit. Would you both agree, Aimee and Tara? I know you were part of a cohort, so you had a set time, but did you notice that kind of peak at the beginning, maybe a bit of a lull in the middle, and then a peak at the end, which is what we often see? Yeah. And was that the same for you, Aimee, as well?
Yes, we offered rewards throughout. So every week we're actually launching something new to keep that interest hyped and to keep people tuned in.
And actually, that's something we've not really talked about today, Dawn, is the reward side of things. We're actually a rewards-based platform. So we give project owners the ability to add rewards to their page. And a reward essentially is giving something back to a supporter by way of a thank you for a financial contribution. So that might be, in Aimee's case, that was your lovely glass blown products, wasn't it? I've got some of them at home. I've told you, I've got some chocolate frogs, which I love. And for you, Tara, was that similar? Was that maybe packs of cards and things that you could offer up front to supporters?
Sorry, yeah, we had a whole tier of things that we offered. So we had zines, which are part of the education pack. We had the suffragette trump cards, which were very popular actually as reward, 1 or 3. And then we also had posters that we made, and we had kind of different tiers, so someone could literally sponsor an entire education pack that was then gifted to a particular school, so you could buy one of those. So we kind of had it tiered out, but we also had a lot of people who just wanted to donate, like literally they just wanted to donate. They wanted to give a particular amount of money just to help the project succeed. And I would actually say we were really we were incredibly fortunate to achieve quite a substantive amount of match funding. So we received money from Creative Scotland. We were part of that cohort, which I think was really successful. I know you've done, more than one since then, haven't you? And also from Back Her Business. So that was amazing for us. I mean, I think it was really the combination of those two things. It was the individual supporters. We had almost 300 individual supporters, which still blows my mind. It's amazing. And we had a significant amount of match. And it was the combination of those two things which allowed us to really achieve, more than 200% of our target.
Amazing. And it can be, just going back to rewards ever so quickly, it can be a really lovely way to develop a future customer base. So you can always list things that you might be thinking of having an early bird sale or pre-sale. Even if you're raising the money to actually be able to make these products or deliver the service, you're capturing your future customer base right from the off with your crowdfunder. We have had a few questions come through, Dawn, primarily actually asking about rewards, and you covered off really nicely, Tara, the kind of things you were offering. Aimee, was that something that played heavily within your crowdfunding campaign?
Yes, all of ours were one-offs from small supporters. So it was, I think, between £30 to £40 people would really spend. We had no big money dumps, for example, from organizations or anything like that. I was a small crafter, so everything was being handmade. So I really had to be careful of yes, I want to offer these big discounts. And of course I want everybody to have these products, but I had to make sure that the materials were covered so that I wasn't then compensating with the money that I'd have from the match funding. So the big thing, I guess, for my customers or my supporters was that they were getting their product at a slightly discounted rate, but the biggest thing was the emotional kind of roller coaster of being in the journey with me and being like, okay, if I buy through the crowdfunder rather than on the website, she will get double, which means she can now get the kiln that she wants, or this, you know, bit of equipment. So not only did someone get an item from me, but they then wanted to see the journey after and stay with me. And a lot of those customers have been repeat customers, and they come back to me organically, you know, now, which has been really lovely. So taking them forward with me.
And then you are, you know, you've really kind of showcased that something that I think we talk about quite a lot, and Dawn, you hit upon earlier, is that sense of community and that sense of support. It's not just from us giving you the tools to be able to crowdfund. When you're actually on the crowdfunding platform, you go through the process, you become part of this online community, and your supporters become part of that community too, and you're able to bring them along for the journey, you know, send messages to them, reach out to them post Crowdfunder. And I think that's a really lovely thing, to have that lasting impact and those lasting relationships going forward as well. Thank you guys for that. That's brilliant. I think, Dawn, in terms of questions, we may have covered off all of those.
Okay, all right, well, it's 1:45, so we probably should wrap up there. So thank you so much, all of you on the call. So Tara, Aimee, Izzy, Zoe and Nicole in the background, and Tom in the background as well. Thank you very, very much for helping us make this happen. And thank you to you, the audience, for watching. I hope you found it really, really useful. It's an absolute honour to be part of International Women's Day and contribute to it, and also hopefully to inspire some of you to just do a little bit more and make some good stuff happen. Been really lovely talking to you all, and I really hope you'll continue to follow Crowdfunder and come on the journey with all of us. I'm sure we'll make some really great stuff happen. So thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned and watch Crowdfunder for more exciting news, and do get involved in the campaign. There's money on offer, so sign up. All right, thanks a lot, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.